Hey guys, welcome to the channel. The music is playing and today I'll talk about the Athena preamp from Denafrips. Music is playing, let me turn down the volume before I can start talking. Alright, this is one of the most frequently asked review that I should put out on the YouTube channel. The Denafrips Athena flagship preamp. You notice that I have this Aries DAC on top of this Artina preamp. This is really to show you that how big is the Artina preamp. The Aries is a pretty small one, size about 26 mm and 260 mm width. But the Artina is a full-size preamp. It is built of full aluminum. It's pretty heavy. Compared to the Aries, it is about 3.5 kg and Artina is about 19 kg. Oh, it is heavy. It is the flagship preamp from Denafrips, and let me show you what is inside this guy and give you some idea how to use this guy, how to optimize this guy and use it in your stereo system. Let's zoom in. First of all, let me unplug the system, turn off the preamp. Okay, turn off the DAC and unplug everything. And let me show you guys this Athena preamp from Denafrips. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Just a couple of XLR cable to disconnect, and XLR cable to disconnect to the loudspeaker. Okay, again I'm using an active loudspeaker from Genelec. It's a pretty nice pair of loudspeaker for desktop usage. In my opinion, to use this Athena preamp in a desktop setup is overkill. So if you want to consider Athena preamp, please use it in a higher end system. Okay, this is the Athena preamp from Denafrips. It's made of full aluminum. The width is about 430 mm and the depth is about 400 over mm and the height is about 12 cm. It's made of full aluminum. It's pretty heavy. I can't really lift up while sitting in this position. Okay, it's the flagship preamp from Denafrips. So Denafrips has Hestia preamp, Hades preamp, and this Artina preamp. Artina preamp is different from the Hades and the Hestia is really because the architecture is slightly different. There's this encapsulated power supply unit underneath the main board. There are two transformers. The two transformers supply the power to the main board, and the main board is sitting on top of the encased and power supply unit underneath it, and it's built of full aluminum in full size. Okay, let me flip it to the back. Before I flip it to the back, this is the front panel. So front panel allows you to turn on the unit by pressing this standby button here, and there are four buttons here: RCA, XL1, XLR2, and XLR3. And the display here, a pretty large display for you to see what are the inputs selected and the volume. And there's this volume knob here, allows you to change the volume control of the preamp. Let me flip it to the back. Yuck! It's heavy. Okay, at the back of it, you can see there's this IEC inlet. Once you plug in the cable, there's this auto sensing power circuitry to detect the input voltage, and it switches a couple relay to send the correct voltage to the two all-core transformer in the PSU to send the power to the preamp. And there are four inputs: XLR 1, 2, 3, and RCA. Hang on a second. There's this XLR 4. XLR 4 input is the pure direct input of this Athena preamp. It is non-switchable. We would highly recommend you to use the XLR4 input if you only have a single source. So the XLR4 input is non-switchable. There's no relay in the circuit path, in the signal path. This XLR4 input will go through directly to the buffer circuitry in the Athena preamp, and through the relay volume attenuation, it changes the volume of the XLR4 input and output right away through this 3 output here. So it is the purest input of the Artina preamp. So again, if you have only one single source, let's say for example, you have a terminator plus DAC, and this is your only source in the system, we would highly recommend to use the XLR4. XLR4 is located here. Alright, XLR4 and XLR4, the extreme left and right of the input section here. But if you have more than one source, please use the XLR1, 2, 3 or the RCA input. So if you happen to have more than one source and you have the XLR4 connected, it is not going to work, because as soon as the XLR4 is connected, regardless which input you choose in this Artina preamp, the XLR4 input signal will always pass through the buffer circuitry in the Artina preamp and output the signal to the power amp or active loudspeaker. We're going to show you this demonstration later on. Output wise, we'll see XLR1 and 2 and RCA. All the outputs are active simultaneously. You can connect the XLR1 and XLR2 as well as the RCA output to multiple amplifier, or to, let's say for example, XLR1 to Apollo power amp, XLR2 to the active subwoofer, or the RCA output to a pair of active loudspeaker or active subwoofer. So the output are active simultaneously, and it is buffered in this class A buffer in the Artina. It can drive the output simultaneously. So you know that Denafrips DAC, we don't recommend you to connect the XLR and RCA together. But for the Artina preamp or the Hades preamp or the Hestia preamp, the output are buffer, so you can connect multiple output at the same time. So these are all the I/O that you can expect from this Artina preamp. And let's zoom in to the internal of this Artina preamp. I already have the 2 screw loosened, and I can pop this lid open and show you guys what is inside this. So it's a pretty chunky piece of aluminum, and let me put this safely aside here. Okay, again, it's a pretty heavy piece of preamp, and let me flip it over. Okay, you don't see the power supply unit by looking at this angle. It is because there is this encased power supply unit underneath this main board. So even though Artina is a single unit mounted in a single chassis, but in reality there is this power supply unit underneath the preamp main board, and it's encased underneath this board. There are 2 transformers found in this power supply box, and there are linear power supply circuitry in this power supply unit to send the clean power through this wire here from the power supply unit to this main preamp board. I'll take another video to show you guys the power supply unit. Please wait for the video, and I won't be showing this in this video, otherwise this video is going to be too long. The power supply from the PSU is sent to this capacitor farm. The capacitor farm is a signature of Denafrips, and we know that using multiple smaller capacitors has a benefit in lower ESR as well as high quality DC output after this capacitor farm. The capacitor farm will supply cleaner DC power supply to the circuitry over here. We use a series of relay here to attenuate the volume. Be it Hestia, Hades or the Artina, Denafrips preamp are unity gain. Unity gain means there's no gain in the preamp. The maximum input from the source, let's say for example, the Pontus DAC output 2 VRMS at maximum volume. If you select the preamp to output maximum volume at 60 steps, okay, the preamp has 0 to 60 steps. So you can attenuate the volume from 0 to 60. So the relay will changes and it activate a couple of series of combination with this resistor here to attenuate the volume. So at level 60, it is a maximum volume, and the maximum volume, the unity gain characteristic of the preamp will output exactly the same voltage as the source, 2 VRMS over RCA or 4 VRMS over XLR, let's say for example your source is a Denafrips Pontus DAC to the power amp. So one thing to take note of using Denafrips preamp with third-party power amp is really the gain of the power amp and the sensitivity of the loudspeaker. In reality, most of the power amp in the market is rated at about 20 dB gain or higher. Some power amp is rated as 26 dB gain. So by using this Denafrips preamp, Artina, Hedis, or the Hestia, it should work fine. But for some of the power amp with relatively lower gain, you might want to consider other preamp instead of Denafrips preamp. It's really because the gain of the Denafrips, the unity gain, is not adding any other thing, any gain in the system, may not be suitable for the lower gain power amp. But of course, if you want to choose Hyperion power amp, Talo power amp, or the Apollo power amp from Denafrips, it is going to work fine. But for third-party power amp, please reach out to us and we'll check whether the compatibility of the preamp from Denafrips matches the power amp that you have. That's the concern of the unity gain structure of the preamp. Other than that, it should work fine. Okay, so Denafrips uses a series of relay here to attenuate the volume. The quality of the relay and the quality of the resistor play a very big part in the sound quality. You notice this Athena preamp uses this brown color resistor from Dell. This is a very high quality resistor and usually found in high-end equipment. And this resistor here can really provide very low loss in the signal integrity, and the attenuated signal further pass through this discrete class A buffer here, and the discrete class A buffer will have higher current drive and to drive this RCA and XLR output simultaneously. So this is really the structure of this Artina preamp. Very similar to the Hestia and Hedis. The architecture of the structure is very similar, but of course Artina has very much different build quality in terms of the attention paid to the power supply, as well as the use of this high quality resistor and relay. So this contribute to the better sound quality of the Artina preamp. Okay, this is the internal of the Artina preamp, and let me show you the operation of this guy. Let me flip it over, and again it's heavy. Whoa. Okay, so as soon as you plug in this power cord to the Artina preamp, the auto sensing circuitry will detect the AC voltage and switches a couple of relay to power up the preamp. So you should hear a couple of relay clicking sound. Afterwards, you will see a red dot on the display to tell you that the Artina preamp is powered on. Plug in the power cord, one relay click, and second relay click. I'm not sure whether the microphone can pick it up, but the preamp is powered on. You should see a standby LED here. It comes with a remote control. It's a pretty big one, and it's made of full aluminum. You can use it to turn on the unit, and you can use it to select the input source, as well as changes the volume up and down. So this is the remote control. You can also use the front panel button to allow you to turn on the unit by pressing this standby button here. A couple of relay clicks, after 3 seconds later, the unit will turn on, and you will be able to change the input selection by pressing the 4 button on the front panel, as well as changing the volume from 0 to 60. You notice as I change the volume, you hear relay clicking noise from the unit. The relay clicking sound is really because as I change the volume, the microcontroller of the Artina trigger or energize or de-energize a couple of relays here to select the correct resistor value to use to attenuate the volume, to attenuate the signal source that is connected to this preamp and output to this class A buffer, subsequently output to the active loudspeaker or the power amp. So this relay clicking sound is a bit of controversy here because some of the customers say, no, I don't like this. The relay clicking sound is kind of disturbing because I do not like any sound coming from the unit. But some of the customers say, wow, it is nice. There's this relay clicking sound and it's kind of sensational where you can hear the volume changes as you change the volume or you turn the volume knob. It's kind of personal, I respect that, but in my opinion this shouldn't be a drawback of the design of the preamp. Any preamp that uses relay to attenuate the volume will have this clicking sound. Why we use the relay to attenuate the volume is really because by using a combination of relay to attenuate the volume and combination of resistor, we sort of mitigate the problem of using the normal volume pot found on the market, the blue color one or the green color one that you see in some of the preamp. Those are the carbon resistor volume pot or potentiometer that may degrade over time. So the carbon in those volume pot, as you use it, the carbon may worn out after a prolonged period of time. You will notice channel imbalance in low volume. You will notice this, especially in low volume. In low volume, the channel imbalance of the blue color or the green color or any kind of carbon potentiometer is prominent. It's because the carbon in the volume pot degrade over time. But to mitigate this problem, most of the smarter designer will use relay-based volume attenuation, where the relay will just trigger a series of resistor to changes the volume, and this relay and resistor will unlikely to degrade over time, or rather it has a much longer lifespan compared to the blue color or the orange color volume knob. This is really why we use relay-based attenuation for this reason. So as you change the volume, you will hear this sound. But as you cover this top cover, and if you are away from the equipment for let's say 3 to 4 meters, you can really hardly notice the noise, or rather the noise will not be so excessive. Let me cover the top panel and connect the Aries to the system so that you guys can hear some music playing through this preamp. I'll also show you guys the XL4 differences and XLR 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me close this guy. Oops. And again, the Aries deck is a perfect example to show you guys how big is the Artina. Let me turn on the Aries DSC by plugging in this basic power cord and USB cable. The USB cable is connected to my MacBook Pro, and the Audivana is already turned on the MacBook Pro. I have this XLR cable. I'll use it to connect the Aries to the Athena. Okay, I'll first try the XLR1 input. XLR1, let me locate this. Okay, XLR1 input. XLR1 left input. And the output cable goes to this pair of active loudspeaker on my desktop, the right channel and the left channel. Okay, let me turn on this Aries DSC. Again, I have to bend my head because I can't see the LED status from this angle. The tiny LED is elegant and hard to see. One of the biggest comment of Denafrips tiny LED design. Select XLR1 input, volume 0, and let me play some nice music from Audivana. Nice, the music is playing. River flows in you from Iruma. So as you turn the volume, you notice with the top cover closed, the relay clicking noise is much lower. So as you attenuate the volume, the larger it is, the louder the loudspeaker will be playing. So what happens if you have a single source? We always recommend you to connect the single source to XLR4 input. XLR4 input is the direct input, it is not affected by this input selection. Once you have the XLR4 input connected to your single source, regardless which input selected on the front panel, by using this button here or using this remote control, the XLR4 input signal connected will always output to the loudspeaker through the volume attenuation here. Let me connect this to XLR4 input and we will see. XLR4 left channel, XLR4 right channel. Okay, XLR4 is connected. Regardless which input I have selected here, as I turn up the volume, we should hear music. This is XLR1 selection, XLR2, XLR3, RCA. There's no effect on the XLR4 input is because XLR4 input bypasses the XLR1, 2, 3 and RCA selection, and the XLR4 input signal goes directly to the volume attenuation as well as the buffer in the Artina preamp. It is the purest, the cleanest input that you want to use when you have a single source. So I know some of the customer may have only one DAC in the system, one DAC in the system, let's say for example the Terminator 2 or the Terminator Plus. Please connect the XLR4 of the Artina preamp. It is the cleanest input. It doesn't go through any relay in the signal path. So arguably, it is probably the best input that you want to use for this Artina preamp. So as you turn up the volume, regardless which input you are currently selected, it will always output the signal to the loudspeaker, to your amplifier, to the loudspeaker. Okay, how about this remote control? So the remote control is a universal one that allows you to control Philips CD player as well as changes the volume of the Artina up and down, to turn on the mute, to unmute it, as well as to put it in standby. So once you put it in standby, the red dot here appear. If you want to turn it on, just hit on the on button on the remote control, it will turn on. After a couple of seconds later, it will back to the normal operation mode where the last selected input as well as the volume will display on the front panel and you will see it. There's this time button here that Denafrips use to change the display brightness. So if you want to dim the display, it is possible by using this remote control. Okay, I hope this video helps. I'll see you next time. Thank you, bye bye.